What is up, gang? Carlton Flowers here with the Go Political Channel podcast edition. And boy, we got a good one today. We're back in the city of Chicago, the place of my birth, the South Side, where I was born and raised. And of course, my family got the heck out of the state of Illinois and fled to Missouri, where I now live in the capital city of Missouri in Jefferson City. So I've got a question for this podcast. In fact, there's going to be 3 questions at the end. But the general question is this. For the Chicago residents, concerning this talk about a National Guard intervention, what are you really afraid of? Do you really think that the National Guard is coming in to crack down on law-abiding citizens, on the black families, on the residents that are not breaking the law? Do you really think that that's what it is all about? We're going to talk more about that, but for some interesting insight into the situation at hand and what's really going on in Chicago, I want to share with you a short clip from Cash Jordan. If y'all are unfamiliar with his channel, you should definitely check him out, and I'll leave a link in the description so you can watch this whole video. But I want to share with you this video of what's going on in Chicago right now, and then let's think about the National Guard intervention, and then we'll get to some of these other pressing questions that I have for you. So let's just check out a couple minutes of this clip from Cash Jordan and see what's happening here.
In downtown Chicago, look at this. What? This is chaos. Look, I'm running.
Look at that.
Getting in cars. At least this guy got their plate. Oh, here come the police.
Yeah, get these. Get 'em.
Nope, they're getting away. Look, they're all getting away.
Being
They all
told
just
at
got
this
away.
point is that this is one of 3 particular
Oh,
scenes
look how they got in.
that occurred earlier this morning.
What?
Now, we do have some video, some cell phone video from witnesses
That's
that
crazy.
actually witnessed this happening. Cell phone video from a camera
Look at all the people.
captured moments thieves rammed a vehicle into this luxury store.
That
Then
store's
you see
cleaned
a group
out,
of people
man.
dressed in dark clothing go into the store
This
and then
is
run out of the
insane.
store with stolen items. That's when
Look at
you
how many
also
vehicles they
notice
have.
that there are people.
Okay, that's enough of that. You get the idea. Smash and grab going on. Look at this. You got this truck backing up into the window of the Louis Vuitton store, busting in, and then they run in and they steal a bunch of stuff. And so I guess the thieves got away with a bunch of really expensive watches. And this is just a one example, okay? You got roving bands of teenagers busting in the local stores, the pharmacy stores like CVS, where they have to put everything behind glass counters. They just run in and they ransack the stores and stuff their bags full of items, and they just walk out of the store. So this is out of control. And you got kids. I've seen videos of kids going in and cleaning out stores. So this is on the rise. It's completely out of control, and they're just going bananas. But all the while, we got this big protest going on by the mayor, Brandon the Jackass Johnson, the 6% approval rating mayor of the city of Chicago, who's leading protests because he cannot stand the thought of Donald Trump stepping in with the National Guard and intervening in the crime scene with the rampant crime that's going on in Chicago. He can't stand the thought of that. And so it just makes me wonder, well, what are you really afraid of? And do people really believe the rhetoric that this mayor is spewing out? I mean, he was talking about, hey, we don't want tanks rolling down the streets of Chicago. I'm like, what? Do you actually think that the U.S. military is going to put tanks on the streets of Chicago? That's the most ridiculous and absurd thing I have ever heard. But then people actually believe it. They actually believe it. And so then you've got videos of these crazy gangbangers that are talking about, well, we got switches. National Guard, you guys don't want to mess with us because we're a different breed. We're built different. We've got switches. We can outgun you. Now, granted, there are like 100,000 gang members in the city of Chicago, but do you really think that the gangsters with their switches, which is basically taking a pistol and converting it to where it's an automatic weapon, do you think that they're any match for the National Guard? No, it's absurd. It's ridiculous. And so then we have to listen to the mayor leading these protests, saying that the federal government does not have a right constitutionally to come in and deploy the National Guard to squelch the crime, which they don't. And I think that's the reason why they haven't come in. You got the governor, J.B. Pritzker, the big fat hog, who's stating that he wants to protect the people of Illinois against the evil dictator Donald Trump from coming in with the National Guard. Craziest thing I have ever heard, because for some odd reason, they think that they're going to, well, they know that the National Guard is not going to come in and attack the citizens who are obeying the law. They're wanting to come in to handle the rampant crime and make these roving bands of teenagers finally be held accountable, and to know that there are consequences for ransacking stores like what you just saw in that video. But they've got people believing that their lives will be in danger. The citizens that abide by the law, their lives will be in danger if the National Guard comes in. And I think it's just an ego thing. I think they just can't handle the hit to their ego if the Republican president sends in the National Guard to take care of a situation that they should have solved decades ago. Okay, so what's the real question? What is the real question? It's not, I don't think it's that everybody is afraid of the National Guard in Chicago. That's ridiculous. The real question is there a reason why Brandon Johnson and the governor and all the politicians in Chicago are against intervention? Well, the short answer is yes. And I'm going to tell you what that is. But first, let's talk about what has not worked. What has not worked to this point? Well, it's the social programs. So we've heard Brandon the Jackass Johnson talking about Donald Trump is evil because he's cutting off federal funds for their programs for the youth violence prevention. Okay. Now, we know good and doggone well that these programs don't work and that it's just a money grab. It's a way for people starting these 501c3s to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. So, for example, we had talked about Kamal Woods and Tiffany Henyard, who started the Plan B Youth Violence Prevention Program, signed up for a federal grant and got $500,000. And Kamal was paid $100,000 a year from the Thornton Township for this youth violence prevention program, headquartered in his defunct car wash that after 3 years, we don't see one shred of evidence that they had done anything for one single ute. They haven't pulled a single ute off of the street and stopped them from committing crimes. Now, over the last, I think, 8 years, I think since Lori Lightfoot was the mayor of the city of Chicago, I think the number is actually around $370 million from my research, and I'm going to do more digging into that, which is the total for the federal violence prevention programs. That's how much they spent, $370 million. And does it work? No. 2 videos ago, I shared with you the information about the statistics on murders. Okay, and I took it back 20 years. So you can't blame people like Donald Trump for pulling federal funds, all right, when we know that one party has been in control of Chicago and the whole state for the last several decades, and they don't solve the problem. Now, I took it all the way back to Barack Obama's tenure. He's from Chicago. He was the president for 8 years. And did they squelch the crime? No, they did not. Did they spend that money? Yes, they did. So then after that, of course, we had Donald Trump come into office. Crime still stayed the same. And then Joe Biden, the savior, comes in. And did they stop crime during the tenure of Joe Biden? No, they did not. And now, of course, Trump is beginning in his second term after that break in between the first and second term. And crime is still out of control. It's still out of hand. Okay, so the social programs don't work. I don't think there's a shred of evidence that these social programs will ever put a dent in the crime. The gangs are still running rampant. The teens are still ransacking stores like what you saw in the video. There's no consequences. There's no punishment. And then we say, well, we don't want to put these kids in jail. These young scholars just need more programs. They need something to do after school. Now, it's kind of funny because I know some people who are drug dealers in the city of Chicago. I actually know people, and I tell you what, they're making a lot of money. We're talking $100,000 a month, and they started at a young age. We're talking early teenage years. And if you ask them if they would have turned down a life of crime and making all those big fat bucks in the drug trade if they would just have had more youth programs, they would laugh in your face. They'd laugh about it. They want to make that money, okay? And there's no recourse for their actions right there. There's no punishment right now, okay? So for the past several decades, they have learned that crime does pay. But why are they letting this go on? Now, I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that if they wanted to stop the crime, they could, but they don't. And there's a reason why. And that's what I'm going to do these 2 special videos on, to tell you why they don't want to squelch the crime. But the real reason behind why the mayor of Chicago is against beefing up the police force, they've cut over, what, 2,600 police officers since Lori Lightfoot was in office? There's a reason for that. And what is it? That's what I'm going to dig into. The reason is because the gangs and the mafia control the city. They make the agreements with the politicians before they even get elected into office. They have to meet with the gang leaders and the mafia and the cartel, okay? We're talking major mafia leaders, Sinaloa cartel, big dogs from South America. They have to meet with them and decide if they're going to allow them to even run and to get into office. And then they have to ask them, well, what do you want? And then the gang leaders say, well, what are you going to give us? Well, we can help you out. What kind of help do you need? Well, we need you to back the police off so we can run our drug markets. And then they comply with that. That's why they're not beefing up the police patrol. That's why they're cutting back. That's why you got 10 gangbangers for every 1 police officer out in those streets. And they're not going to be able to put a dent in that crime until we have more officers that are patrolling the streets and staying on top of the crime. Now, some of you might not believe that, but when I pump out this video, I'm going to show you evidence from history that what I am saying is a fact. You can't so much as even print 1 campaign flyer before you get permission from the gangs and the cartel, okay? They got to get permission first. And after they clear the way, then they can run for election. And once they make it in, they have to keep those promises or else. That's the real reason. It's not because people are just so, they're so obsessed with their Trump derangement syndrome that they can't stand the idea of Donald Trump coming in to clean the city. That's not it. And you can hate Donald Trump all you want. That's fine. But we know for a fact that the party that's in control, they're not going to solve this crime problem, and they never will. Chicago is the drug capital and the hub of the United States. They are. That is fact. It's the most corrupt city in the nation. They are they're a notch higher than the city of New York. Yep, that's right. You think New York City is run by the mob and the crime rings? No, it's Chicago. That's the real city right there. Okay, so I'm going to be pumping out these 2 videos to show you the evidence to back up what I'm saying. But I got a few questions for you. A few questions. Do you think the National Guard is really coming in to crack down on the citizens, on the black community? Do you think they're going to racially profile and just punish and oppress the people who are trying to make an honest living? Post that in the comments, first of all. You know, we do have racist police officers. There is oppression by dirty cops, but every profession has a certain percentage of people that are bad. The police are no different, but there's a lot of good police officers. And I can tell you stories from a personal close friend of mine who was a police officer in the South Side, and he's Hispanic, and he can tell you stuff that would make your jaw drop. He couldn't handle it after 5 years, and he got the heck out of the complete state of Illinois. He came to Missouri too. All right, so that's question number 1. Do you think that the National Guard is going to oppress the law-abiding citizens? Now, the reason why the National Guard has not come in is because they can't constitutionally do that. And I don't think that Donald Trump is going to override the state of Illinois and send them in unless it's specifically requested by the mayor and the governor of Illinois. And of course, now we know why they are refusing to ask for that help. But we are seeing that the federal government is stepping up the effort of ICE arrest of illegals. All of these illegal aliens that are in here dealing drugs, doing the human trafficking and every other god-awful activity that makes them tons of money, they're stepping up those efforts. And they do have a right to do that because Chicago can say that they're a sanctuary city all they want, but that's not legal on the federal level. So they're not going to send in the National Guard to clean up the crime. Okay, second question I have for you. Do you think that the city of Chicago actually could put a dent in crime? Okay, I want you to answer that question. Is it possible? Well, it certainly ain't possible by cutting the police force by 2,600 officers. That ain't going to happen. But let me know, do you think that they could really squelch the crime problem? Post that in the comments for me. Now, we're going to have to just wait this out and see what happens. Whether or not they're just going to let people suffer and sit here and be left to the roving mobs of teenagers and the gangbangers raiding stores, not protecting store owners, not protecting the citizens and the people in the neighborhoods that are dodging bullets, just leaving them left to the mercy of the gangbangers. Okay. But here's the third question I have for you. A certain percentage of the Chicagoans in the black community are fed up. There's a group called Flip Chicago Red. You've seen them. They've been showing up in force at the city council meetings, screaming at Mayor Brandon Johnson because they're disgusted with the fact that he cuts back on the police force, but then he spends $600 million to lay out the red carpet and help illegal aliens flood the city. Where we sit here and watch them giving them a stipend of $1,500 a month on a cash card, free room and board for 6 months, cutting the process for them to get driver's licenses, cutting the process for them to get business licenses where they can start a restaurant, they can start a food truck in a matter of a day or two, where everyone else has to run through all the regular hoops. They get to be on easy street. And so the black community, a percentage of the black community, is fed up. So here's the question. Do the black residents of the south side of Chicago, in my own neighborhood, have a right to fight against the mayor and ask for intervention from the federal government because the mayor refuses to act and the governor refuses to act? Do they have a right to appeal? When you have like lawsuits and you lose in court, you can appeal. You know, you can start with a local court, then you go to a federal court, then you go to the appellate court, and then you can even appeal to the Supreme Court. So do you think that it's fair that they have no process of appeal because the local politicians refuse to help them out? I want to know. Post that in the comments. And in the meantime, you want to tick the notification bell, like and subscribe, do all that good stuff because you don't want to miss the 2 deep dives that I'm going to be working on here in the next couple of weeks that will show you the real process that's going on in the dank, dark basements where these politicians have to make the deals with the cartel, with the drug warlord, the gang leaders. They have to make deals with them before they even get a chance to print one sign to put in a yard to be able to run for election. They got to get the permission first before they can even win and get into office. And then once they're in, they have to hold those promises to the gangs. Yep, that's right. And I will prove it. So just wait for that. It's coming your way, but hey, let's let the comments section get going. Answer those questions. Let me know. I'm very curious to know, but that's all I got for this one. This is Carlton, and I'm out.